Hello, again, my name is John Paris. I'm the chairman of the Asian American Group's endorsement committee. And on behalf of all of us, we appreciate you taking time out of your campaign schedule to join us this afternoon. For the people that are watching online, this is Denis. He's currently the incumbent in Senate District 2, correct?
Correct.
And you're currently the Senate Majority Leader. Is that correct as well?
Yes.
One of the first questions we've been asking of people as of late has centered around the recent special session regarding Tesla. What ideas do you have, since you've certainly been a member of the legislature for a good period of time, what ideas do you have to try and either leverage the Tesla coup, for lack of a better term, to try and get more industries to relocate to Nevada, or perhaps what ideas do you have to just maximize Tesla's decision to move their facilities here to northern Nevada?
Well, I think when you look at companies such as Tesla, I think the fact that we've got international press on this, you can, when you talk to others across the country, they'll say, "Oh, you guys got Tesla." I've talked to my colleagues in other states that were trying to get Tesla in New Mexico, as well as I know California, Texas were other states that were trying to get that. I think it sends a message out to not only the country, but to others in other countries for that matter, that Nevada's a great place to do business. I think that's going to be very important for us as we continue our economic development, which we've tried that for many, many years, but specifically in the last 6 years, we've put an emphasis on economic development, creating some funds that will allow businesses to be developed through the university. We've also brought in some funds, some federal funds that will help investors to be able to invest in some of those ideas. And so I think as we continue to support that through the fund that goes through the university, the fund that goes through our economic development folks, so that they have money to be able to have incentives for businesses that want to come here. I think those are all great things, and I think that the message is out there that we've got a great environment. I think our laws are great for businesses, and we have a great opportunity to be able to expand into other fields. I mean, we do great in tourism and gaming, we do great in mining, but we're also seeing that we can do good in technology, that we can do good in manufacturing. We just have to work hard, and we need to make sure that the education piece is in that also, right? We have to have the workers that are educated and that kind of thing. But I think if you look, we have the ability to be able to do that, and I think that's an incentive for businesses that want to come here.
And we've been talking a lot about education throughout the interview process. Obviously, the educational component is something that many technological companies have it's causing some reluctance on their part. Will we have enough skilled workers, or will our workers who relocate here have appropriate schools for their children? What ideas do you have, perhaps more short-term than long-term, to try and improve upon Nevada's national ranking with respect to education?
So education is probably the main reason that I actually got involved in politics, was to make education better for our kids. And you start out trying to make it better for your children, and I have 5 kids, and I've been working since my daughter was in kindergarten, advocating for better education here in the state, and she's now 29, so that's been a few years that I've been doing that. As far as we implemented last session a bill that I was the sponsor that implemented the Zoom school concept, which helps the kids that are the hardest hit, that are really the lowest scoring, that have the hardest issues as far as language acquisition and those kinds of things. $50 million, which we've never done with state money into English language learners, and we've had some great success with that. We have kids that now are, because the Zoom school concept has a literacy piece, it reduced class sizes in full-day kindergarten, it increased our preschool in these schools that were selected, as well as the summer school component for 17 extra days. And we saw some great results. We've got kids that are now at grade level that in years past we couldn't get them there, but because we were able to focus on these 4 core areas, we've got kids that are reading at grade level. Half of the kids that weren't at the beginning of the year are now. And then this new year that just started, many of those are going to be reading at grade level before the half year. So I think we need to continue to invest in that program. In addition, during the interim, I've been the chair of the interim committee looking at the funding formula for education. The last time we changed the funding formula for education was in 1967, and I was in first grade. I think Nevada's changed a little bit in that time, and I think that we need to really update our funding formula for education. There's been a few tweaks here and there along the way, but I think it's time to really do a major overhaul. And during the interim, we did that. We have some recommendations that we're going to be coming out to do some formula funding so that ELL kids, kids in at-risk schools, we know that those cost more. And so if you weight them at 1.5 instead of one student, it's 1.5 students. You know, that kind of a funding formula, it will help, because then we can use them on these types of programs that will reduce class sizes, the programs that will increase literacy and those kinds of things. And then thirdly, the biggest piece to making our education better is that we know what we need to do, but it costs more money. So we really need to look at our revenue and see how we're going to update our revenue system here in the state, so that as we move into the future, we will have sufficient revenues for not only for education, but for our economic development and for our state programs that are there to help our citizens.
Well, regarding revenue for education, that brings up everyone's favorite topic of the margin tax, and we all chuckle because we've all heard, the questions. As best as you can, what is your view of the margin tax?
Well, we've had the margins tax before us, like it was 3 years ago, it came to us. As a tax itself, I think it could work if you were able to adjust it. The proposal that's being given to us today is a set thing. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? What I will tell you as a legislator, I was elected to represent the people. And I think that when it comes to tax policy, I think the legislature is the one that needs to do that. So I don't know that I don't really like doing taxation by initiative petition, because if you make a mistake, then you can't change it. In this particular case, you can't change it for 3 years. That's very difficult when you're trying to get it right. But that being said, I know that people, including myself, know that we need to get more money for education. And that's where this came from, is out of frustration, out of everyone that says, hey, our kids are in overcrowded classrooms. And we've got kids in high schools that are sitting on the ground because there's no desks for them to sit at. We've got kindergarten classrooms that have 34 kids in them. We've got other elementary and middle school classes that are just way too full. And I've seen what smaller classes can do. I mean, Zoom school is a perfect example of that. When you have 22 kids in a classroom instead of 34, you can do some great things. And so, I think that it'll be interesting to see what the people want on this issue. But regardless, I have made a commitment that if it passes, I have a bill that will be able to implement it. Otherwise, if it doesn't pass, then I'm committed to working with the governor, with the speaker, to make sure that we look at the revenue so that we can get more revenue for education, because I think that's what this is all about, that we're just not doing everything that we can to make education better for our kids.
Just a quick clarification. If the margin tax passes, or any question on the ballot that passes though, does it automatically become a law? Or you still have to go to the legislature and...
We have to go to the legislature and implement it, because we have to create the regulation. So if the margins tax passes, okay, then it has real specific things in it that will become law, but the legislature still has to then determine, well, what's the regulations and things like that have to be implemented in order for that to work.
Can the legislature veto it out?
No. We can't veto it. If the people voted in, we have to implement it.
Okay.
But from a procedural standpoint, we have to figure out how do we actually implement it.
Okay.
You mentioned earlier the funding formula, and how Southern Nevadans, for the first time in a very long time, politicians, I should say, have kind of come together along with non-politicians trying to be a little bit more of a unified voice. Nevada has a tension between the North and the South, which is different from the normal partisan politics that we usually see in most legislatures. What ideas do you have to try and minimize that North-South tension in order to get things like the funding formula modified so it's a little more equitable, or or other taxation or education related issues?
Well, I think, when you look at, like, for the funding formula, for example, is a perfect example. If you implement a funding formula based on ELL, at-risk, at special ed, Clark County is going to automatically get a benefit from that. Probably more so than anybody else in the state, because we have more ELL kids, we have more, Title I kids, and so we're going to get a benefit from that. But we have to also, we can't just do that at the detriment to everybody else. So, when we're elected, we have a constituency that we represent. But we also have to represent Nevada, and we have to do what's best for Nevada. And so it doesn't do us any good to make the rest of the state worse, because at the end of the day, then we end up having to go and help them anyways. And so we have to find a way that we can implement, a formula that works, that's fair, that will make it so that you can have sufficient funds for the things that you need to, but at the same time try to find a way to create a bridge to allow those that might end up getting a little bit less be able to adjust their budgets at some point. So it has to be a transition. So I don't know that we need to just cut everything off and say this is the way it is, but Tesla's a perfect example. It doesn't bring any direct jobs to Southern Nevada. It's an economic development thing that we're doing, but it will bring jobs to Northern Nevada, which will help the economy in the north. They've had a much harder time recovering from the economic downturn. If we can help them, then monies from Southern Nevada don't have to supplement, what they're doing there. And so the state as a whole wins, because unemployment goes down, and we're attracting other businesses here. And so while they're going to get some jobs because of the Tesla thing, 6,000 jobs and 3,000 construction jobs and other auxiliary, we'll be able to attract other businesses down here. So I think as a state, we just have a lot to offer. And while there is that north-south, I think that when you sit down and talk to folks, I think those kinds of things can be worked out when they realize the inequities. And one of the things that I have noticed is that when you go out to the rurals, and I just did a rural tour of the northern rural counties, they really believe in their lifestyle. They believe that what they're doing is a great way to do things, just like we believe it. And so we're not necessarily going to change each other's minds, whose life is better or whose way of life is better. But I think if we have discussions and work together, that we can come to solutions that really work for the state as a whole.
Mike, I know every so often you have questions for our state senators, or candidates for state senate, I should say.
Nothing more. No question.
None? That is so rare.
I just not interested in.
Yeah,
So
same thing with me, John.
Okay,
On
so
a
you
normal-
guys hammered him yesterday off camera.
normal, yeah. On a
That
normal
is so
day, I
rare.
would be asking, my typical spiel, but I've spoken to the.
Yeah, but I like to ask you one question.
There you go. There you go.
No, it's not that. See, you're the leader, the majority leader, and you're a Democrat. And why we don't get help? I don't know if this concerns you or not, but the Democratic Party, we have no Asians at all in the Senate or the Assembly. And this election cycle, we had about 4 guys running. And we are so close to the Democratic Party for years, 12 years, Senator Reid and Baldwin, But they never come out and reach to us and say, let's help you get one Asian elected at least. Neither in the state, neither in the county, or the city, nothing. And we give so much of ourselves, we give money, we give everything, and they don't want to come and just give us a hand.
And I agree. I think we need to have a diverse, I happen to be Hispanic, and I know that we're not even represented well in the legislature. In the process that we went through to recruit, we actually reached out to try to get, including Asian, and had a couple of some real great possibilities, but we couldn't get them to run. Sometimes it's hard when you explain what you're going to do, what they need to do, and that it impacts. You see a lot in the legislature. You see a lot of young guys, and you see a lot of older folks, and there's not a lot in the middle. And the reason is, if you really look at it, and I'm kind of a rare thing because it's hard because it impacts your job. trying to take care of your family while you got kids and all that. And so trying to get good candidates to run sometimes is very difficult. But I'm committed to getting great candidates to run, and I'm I want to diversify our the Senate. I think that and we've tried to do that, but I want to make sure it's just like with the Hispanics. I'm not gonna support a Hispanic candidate just because they're Hispanic.
No,
they have to be the best candidate
Yeah,
that we've got.
I agree with you there.
And so whatever, I'm willing to work with you guys
Sure.
to make sure that we can get some great candidates, because that's, at the end of the day, I have to have candidates that can win and that will also be great legislators. And sometimes it's hard to find that. Sometimes you get a great candidate that can do really well as a campaigner, but maybe they're not as good in the legislative side. And others would make really good legislators, but can't campaign and can't win to be able to get there. So there's a mix, but whatever I can do, I'm willing to.
Sure, I'd like to work with you in the session, after when you start off. It's a Asian candidate, because what? Asian people, especially the main races, like senators and governors, they are majority, campaign contribution over 300,000 plus. And we give the money, we give the votes, and we don't have some respect. That's exactly what you're asking for. Keep respect, because I know the Hispanics went through a hard time because I've been here 20 years. So finally, they got some respect. So I'd like to have the same thing, with your help for the Asian community.
Yeah, and I'm excited that there are some folks out there that we could definitely work with, and during the session, it's a good time too to bring them up to let them see what it's like, because sometimes you can get some folks to take interest in that. We also have the ability. We hire folks for the legislative session. That would be another opportunity to get some Asians to be able to come. It's hard from Las Vegas because you got to pay for all your expenses, but you get paid to do it. But you got to go up there for 4 months, and we're trying to make that easier. But if you do have any folks that are interested in that, we are looking there too. And that's another place that sometimes they get an interest in getting involved in politics.
The other thing is, I remember when Barbara Buckley was the majority, and she was the speaker there, and she did offer me to bring a whole bunch of Asians to Carson City, and she introduced the Asian community, but I didn't have the time and I didn't take her up,
Yeah.
But luckily we would like to come this session,
Definitely, it
the
would
whole
be great.
leaders and come on the, Senate and the Assembly for a meeting.
Oh yeah, no, I'm all about that. Anytime we can get people from Las Vegas to come up to the legislature, I think it's important. So I would put that same thing out there.
We'll do that this session,
Would love to have
with your help, we need that.
Yeah.
Great.
Should you have some kind of mentoring program, maybe like a workshop, to get people encouraged to come in? Leaders or whoever is interested to run, and give them some kind of, encouragement and idea on how to be. Because I'm sure there's some people who would like to run, but no idea who to approach. One way of getting leaders who are,
I think that's a will. Just
Huh?
like the other gentleman, I asked him,
yeah,
if you lose this time, will you run again?
yeah, you lose.
Do you have that face like a Lincoln?
Yeah, but
Run until you win. Then this way, if you
To
have
give
the
him
will,
like-
then
yeah.
you have the support.
Yeah,
Otherwise, you go in and support, and then he's going to lose.
yeah, but
Well,
Mo works
Nobody
very hard.
knows him.
Well,
I know him for a long time. He works very hard, and he did a great job in the last session. I know about here.
And where I got experience, because it wasn't my intent to become the majority leader or to be even run necessarily for politics. I always was involved in the community. So,
Yeah.
I got involved in the PTA when my daughter started kindergarten. The city council asked me to serve on the library board. I did community development block grants. I did Boy Scouts. That's where you find people that can make great legislators, because they know their communities and can go up and represent that. So, that's where I would recommend that the community work to get people, and I have opportunities to appoint people to different committees, and if you've got great people, I need those names.
We'll take you up on that.
Because and we've appointed a few. I know I've appointed a few, but those kinds of things, as well as local. If you get them involved in those that will help prepare some folks to be able to come and serve. And then we have done some where we'll do a workshop and talk a little bit about what it's like. And anybody that has any interest whatsoever, if you've got anybody, they'll call me. I'll go to lunch with them and talk to them. And because we're small in the Senate and we have very few openings usually when we're recruiting, it's easy to just sit down with them and do that. So if we've got those you know, let me know and I'll be glad to sit down with them. Or if I can't, I'll have one of my leadership folks do that.
Great.